Hey, friends. Welcome to the Swing My Heart podcast. Come join me, your host, Nicole, for some hope-filled conversations about heartfelt entertainment that makes your heart swing. Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Swing My Heart podcast. I'm your host, Nicole, and today I am very excited to have for the first time romance author Lindsay Gibson to the show. Welcome, Lindsay.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Of course. I'm so excited to chat with you today. Thank you for coming on.
Of course, yeah. I love doing this.
Yes. So my first question is, what led you to becoming a writer? Did you read a lot of novels when you were younger? And who were some of your favorite authors and how have they inspired your writing?
Oh, yes, I've always been a reader ever since I could read. I was reading. And in the 90s, I was reading The Babysitter's Club, Sweet Valley
Yeah.
High, like all of those series. We didn't have Kindle or anything back then, so
Yeah.
my book pile was always huge behind me in my bedroom. I remember my mom was like, "Can we please just go to the library to get some of these because
Yeah.
there's no more room in your bedroom for all these books." And had I known that one of my daughters, I have three daughters, would be into those books, I would have kept them all. So yes, to answer your question, I've always been a reader. But as I grew and went to college and life just changed, and so I
Mhm.
couldn't read as much, but I always would try to. And
Mhm.
did I always know I was going to be a writer? I always dreamed to be one, but I wasn't sure how that was going to transpire because it's one of those careers where you want to do it, but it's so overwhelming because it's a hard career to get
Mhm.
started and get going with that I just wasn't sure. And I ventured down another track for quite a while. I have a bachelor's in psychology and a master's in nutrition. So
Okay.
for a long time I saw clients and I kind of navigated down that route, and it's never a regret that I got any of those degrees because I use it on my own self and my children, especially nutrition.
That's
So
awesome. Yeah.
when I write a lot of my blogs, if you ever poke around on my website and read some of it, you could see the nutritionist coming out in
Mhm.
me through those. So but writing was always in the back of my mind. And my first book actually was not a novel, it was a memoir. And I always knew if I was going to write, I was going to start with my own story because one of the areas that I specialized in nutrition was mental health nutrition. So
Mhm.
I wanted to share my own story to help my clients at the time so they can read and relate and help, right?
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
so that's the purpose of a memoir, is to inspire and get your story out.
Yeah. Mhm.
That's what got my writing fingers going. It was when I finished that manuscript and I said, I did it. I wrote an entire book. And so
That's
and
amazing.
I knew it wasn't going to be a major bestseller or anything like that. Again, I just wanted to get my story out so others who
Mhm.
had been through what I had been through could relate. But I was so
Mhm.
proud of myself that I actually put together a whole story. So the writing dream started to come back. And this was in 2018. And but I just had my third daughter. So I got into the throes
Okay.
of that and
Amazing.
kept putting it off and putting it off. And then finally, I woke up. So there really isn't one thing that prompted me to begin
Mhm.
writing fiction novels and
Mhm.
romance. I literally just woke up one day. I had a story in my mind, and writing is always so therapeutic for me anyway that I said,
Mhm.
let me I've done a manuscript before, I can do this. And I started writing. And that is a book that became my debut last year, which was The Christmas Promise.
That's amazing. Yes. And nutrition is very important. So it's awesome
Yeah.
that you also do that on the side.
Right. That's right. It's
Yes.
not a waste.
Yes. I'm so glad that you are a part of the author community. You're a fantastic author.
Oh, thank you so much. That
Of
means a lot.
course. Of course. So who are some of your favorite authors and how have they inspired your writing?
Well, I'm I grew up in New England, 40 years in New England. I live on South Carolina coastline now. My husband got a job, a 3-year assignment. We're giving it a try down here. I
Mhm.
love it. It's wonderful.
Mhm.
But I'm a New Englander at heart. So I love all of, you got Ellen Hildebrand, you got Brenda
Yeah.
Novak, you got Pamela Kelly, all those New England
Yes.
inspired romances. I've always read them. I also I also like psychological thrillers. Maybe it's the I don't know, maybe it's
Okay.
the psychology background in
Yeah.
me. I like to toss it up a little, especially
Yeah.
now to spooky season. I'm like, give me all the psychology thrillers or, any
Yeah.
thriller really. I don't know, I like that.
Yeah.
But so like I've always gravitated towards, where I'm from and
Mhm.
books that are inspired by those settings because that's what I
Mhm.
write, New England romance. No matter where I live in the world, it's my roots.
Yes. It's
Yeah.
always nice to stay true to your roots.
Yeah, I mean, I know all the areas up there. I've been everywhere up
Yeah.
there, so I love to write about them.
Yes. I've really been a couple of places up in the Northeast. I've been to Philadelphia, New Jersey, and then, of course, New York City. And that's
Yes.
about it. Yeah.
Well, you should, if you ever could, travel up
Yes.
to maybe New Hampshire, Vermont, especially this time of year. It's just
Yes.
absolutely breathtaking.
Yes. I've heard it's beautiful up there. And one of my favorite shows, of course, Gilmore Girls, is set in New England. So
Well, you'd love to know that I wrote The Christmas Promise in the cafe that was inspired Luke's Cafe. I'm from the Gilmore Girls town, so
that
uh,
is amazing.
so I've been to all the festivals because they have them every year. I've met a lot of the cast members. So a sleepy, tiny little town
So cool.
transforms in hundreds of thousands of people every year
Yes.
to see what town inspired the writer and the Mayflower Inn that she stayed in, that got
Mhm.
her going with writing the series. My father actually renovated a lot of that inn, so we're very
That's
connected
really
to that
cool.
area. So I
Yes.
wrote The Christmas Promise in that cafe mainly. So
I love that.
yeah.
And what was it like meeting the cast of that show
Well, I met some of the big players in that in the Gilmore Girls early on. They don't
early
come,
on?
yeah, they don't like Melissa McCarthy. She doesn't come
Yeah.
anymore because she's turned into such a
Hmm.
superstar.
Yeah.
But the festival has been going on since the beginning of that show, really long
Yeah.
time.
It's really.
And so those characters used to come um, earlier on. So I mean, and the festival's grown over the years. So
Hmm.
meeting them, I feel lucky that I was able to meet a lot of those cast members before it just blew up so
Or it
much.
blew
So
up. Yeah. That's really
yeah, I mean,
cool. Yes.
it is really cool. I mean, even the high school there has Gilmore Girls sweatshirts and Stars Hollow, and it's funny. It's really there's gift
Oh,
shops there. So yeah.
I love that. What's your writing process? Do you first come up with a storyline and then build your characters, or do you have a type of character in mind and then build the story around that character?
I think it's different for every story. That's what I'm finding because you never know. And I'm sure it's the same for most writers. You just
Mhm.
never know where the
Mhm.
inspiration is going to come. So sometimes I get the female lead in my head first. Who is she?
Mhm.
What does she do for a living? And what's her struggle? Sometimes I just start there, like with actually with the book I'm working on now, which is a Christmas story, and it's based in Vermont. I came up with her first. What does she do and what is she
Yeah.
struggling with? And then I was like, okay, I got to build from there. But
Mhm.
then the Christmas Promise, um, I started with uh I started with the setting, which was based out of a little seaside village. It's actually called Newcastle, New Hampshire, but
Okay.
it's right off Portsmouth. So it's like this tiny little they call it one of New England's like islands. So
Mhm.
it's gorgeous. I could never afford to buy a house there, but it is pretty. And I came up with a setting first for that one. So
That's cool.
it really just depends. But once I nail the struggle for my characters, the
Mhm.
story just starts to build and I start to get the outline going.
Okay.
And I have to submit the outline to Harpeth Road and they help me build the story from there. And then of course, while I'm writing the first draft, things change. I add more, I might take stuff away, but
Yeah.
it just that's what the first draft's for, is to build it
Yeah.
out.
What do you enjoy most about writing romantic fiction, and what have you found to be the most challenging about writing in this genre?
I love I chose this genre because happy endings for me, I mean, this world is so hard as is,
Mhm.
right? We're all struggling with so much, and
Yes.
there's a lot of no happy endings out there. And so
Yeah.
it's my way of giving people that pause. And like I said
Mhm.
before, mental health is a big background of mine. So that was my goal with this, is so they can literally get lost in my stories, but relate to my characters and know that there's going to be a happy ending and a smile
Mhm.
at the end, no matter what their
Yeah.
characters are going through. And
Yeah.
that's why I chose. And, I love Hallmark. I love those love it.
Mm-hmm.
So I was like, I got to
Yeah.
recreate the
Yes.
contemporary and romance and the, and all that. So
Yes.
it's because it's my own personal preference of reading and watching those movies.
Mm-hmm.
But like I said, I really want to be a comfort source to my readers when they pick up my novels. So
Yes. Hallmark is very popular, I think, for that reason. And I think it's the same for authors as well in their books.
yeah. Oh yeah. We all, I think anybody who writes contemporary romance definitely loves
Yeah.
Great American Family, Hallmark,
Mark,
all that.
yep. And it's definitely needed in the world today. There's a lot of negativity
Mhm.
and just need to lift people up, bring a little
Yes.
bit of hope to the
Yes,
world.
exactly.
Yes. Is there a character that you created that's your favorite or that you relate to the most?
There's a piece of me in every single one of my characters, and I think I'm
Mm-hmm.
going to do that moving forward because, and I think a lot of writers do this because it's what we know, right? But because there is a tiny little piece of me in each of them, whether it's a struggle or somewhere they've been or something they do for a living or whatever it is, I can't pick a favorite because I
Mm-hmm.
like them for different reasons. So I don't know. I can't say there's a favorite of mine. I like them all, and
Yeah.
for who they are and who they've become in my stories. And if I could just bring them to life and hang out with them all, I think I'd
Yes.
like them all the same.
Yes. I feel the same way reading books, watching movies. Of course, there's a couple I have related to, but there's also so many that I love too.
Yeah,
Uh,
it's hard to pick. You can't really pick because then
It's
I feel like I'm casting aside my other characters. Like she's my
yeah,
favorite. Sorry.
yes. So your debut novel was The Christmas Promise. How did that story come to be, and what were the challenges of getting that first book published?
Oh, that one. Well, that one's always going to hold a special place in my
Mm-hmm.
heart because it's my
Yeah.
debut. So,
Yes.
and my writing process has changed dramatically since then. So I've gotten quicker in certain
Mm-hmm.
areas. Some areas I'm definitely still learning. And the founder, Jenny Hale, she of Harpeth Road,
Mm-hmm.
she was a teacher and before she
That's
became
amazing.
a writer. It's
Yes.
very evident when you're one of her authors.
Mhm.
She's got such a big heart and she's a great teacher.
Yes.
And so I have learned so much from her and her team. I love editing. I might be one of the odd authors who really like it. I love it. I love getting the constructive criticism because that's how I learn. And so my debut novel was, it took 2 years from first
Wow.
draft to developmental edits. Now, of course, you have to include submission, right? And then feedback. And then once it goes into contract, it goes through at least six months of developmental edits, especially for a new author. Now, the longer you do it, the quicker that process becomes, right? So my
Mhm.
developmental edits are not 6 months anymore. They might be more like 2 months or 3 months, so it's cut time in half. But it was a very long process, but a very good one because I learned so much. I learned what they're looking for. I learned what making a manuscript marketable means. I learned how to make the art of the characters and structure the story a lot better. So, so there's not a lot of dead space. I'm not like
Mhm.
deleting now. I'm not deleting
Yeah.
scenes because I know what they're looking for. So,
Yeah.
it was what I started with the Christmas Promise is not the book that is out today, but it
Okay.
has characters, has the same setting, and it has the same struggles that I originally had wanted for them. It's just all the in between is all completely different. Like we were moving things around,
Wow.
taking characters out, putting characters in, and during the process, I was like a little overwhelmed because I was like, I don't see the final result here. I thought my story got completely destroyed, but it wasn't. It was just becoming what it
Yeah.
is today. But it's hard to see that, especially as a new author. You have to
Mhm.
trust and you have to let go and say, okay, let's do this. And then when I read the final result, I was like, I would never have come up with that if it wasn't
Oh.
for these editors. But it's hard. It's hard, especially when they cut a lot of your story and you're like, but I really
Yeah.
like those scenes. And they're like, scenes are great, but it's not moving the story forward. I'm like, okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
I can't even imagine.
Yeah.
But
Your hard work is like out the door, but it's okay. It's okay.
yes, even with certain Hallmark movies, not everything makes the cut. And I'll be watching something, for instance, one of my favorite shows, Signed, Sealed, Delivered, there's been a couple of those movies, scenes have been cut out. And the first time I watched, I was like, wait, I feel like there's more to
Yes.
this scene than what
Yes.
we're
Always
actually
read the
seeing.
book. Yes. Always read the book. Yeah.
And then I'll go back, and sometimes the scenes have been shown, in Canada, internationally. And I'll be like,
Yeah.
okay, that makes more sense now.
Yeah. Well, you can actually fit so much more in a novel than you can in,
Yeah,
I think, the screenplay.
very
So
true.
that's
Yes.
probably why they cut it out
Yeah.
so much for the movie.
And speaking of screenplays, have you ever thought about getting into screenwriting?
That's a whole different area. Not to say that I couldn't. Of course I can learn how
Yeah,
and
of course.
go do it, but no, I'm going to stick to the novel writing. If one of my books goes in that direction.
Yeah.
Luckily there are screenwriters who do take it and turn it
Yes.
into what we see on the screen.
Yeah.
So I could do it. It's not really my area of interest in doing.
I totally understand. Yes, it's very difficult. My dad got a master's in screenwriting.
It's a whole different, that's why it's its own area of study.
Yes,
Very
very
different.
true. Let's talk about your new book, The Christmas Coin, without giving anything away. Tell us a little bit about the inspiration behind the story and the characters.
So that story was inspired by I've always had a dream to be a ballerina. I did dance at a little
I
ballet
did
studio
too.
in Connecticut where I grew up, and I was in the Nutcracker a few times, and it was my
That's
favorite,
awesome.
as a little girl. And I never danced any lead roles because I never quite got that far in ballet. But every year I go see the Nutcracker. I take my girls to go see it as well because it's just I love the music. Just brings back so much nostalgia, and so that's what inspired me for that story, just the Nutcracker alone. Then I was like, okay, now I need to create a story around this my love for the Nutcracker. So I started to map out Amelia Collins. So the story is about a professional ballerina who unfortunately has a career-ending injury on stage. So yes, and ballet is all she knew. And on top of being a ballerina, she became a model and a social media ballet influencer, and really just connected to her audience, grew the ballet studio that she was contracted with. And so she really was a star in her own way, and was very busy with that for a very long time. And then can you imagine, just boom, it's all over. And that's to be expected sometimes when you're in a career like that. Athletes face the same thing. So it was really funny because as I was researching injuries that can take place, I actually did get in touch with an orthopedic doctor. I was like, talk me through this, because I know that in today's advanced medical world, they can repair a lot of injuries. So I had to get some direction with that. Like, what could happen that would end a ballerina? He goes, all right, let's talk about some injuries. So I wanted her, so now she has to find her way after everything was just, ends. So she decided to literally leave. She was living in New Haven, Connecticut, working for, a studio or a theater out there. And she decides to abruptly pack it up and go because she just needed to start over, and she didn't know why she was doing this. She just went with her intuition and decided to go down a whole new path. She also has a twin brother who's very sick through the whole story, but he becomes a huge part of guiding her to where she ends in the story. And so she buys this farmhouse on a whim with all of her savings from all of her accomplishments and with no plan. And it's in upstate Connecticut. So it's a Christmas in Connecticut story, which I grew up in Connecticut. So that I was so excited to finally write about Connecticut. And she starts over and meets the handsome Benjamin Walsh, single dad of two daughters who are ballerinas themselves. And so she finds herself in a very unique way through his oldest daughter, through her twin brother who's sick, and buying this old farmhouse that has its own story within this story. So it's a dual timeline, just like The Christmas Promise was set up. And you're going to read a story alongside the modern day story about this farmhouse and how it all connects in the end, and how she grows and who she becomes by the end of the story. And of course, there's love and, everything in between, and all the Christmas in Connecticut fun that I tried to throw. There were so many things I wanted to throw when from my own childhood. The editor's like, let's just pick like 3.
Aw.
And what are your favorite activities? In Christmas growing up. And so I chose some of my favorites, and it was just so much fun. I absolutely love, love, love that story. And the ending, just every time I did a proofread, it made me tear up, because it's like, sometimes I'm like, gosh, how did I even, how did I even come up with those words? Because, and that's what I want to do, is help move and motivate and inspire. So Amelia is very inspiring. I can't wait for everybody to read it.
I can't wait to meet that character and all the characters in the story. I think it's going to be fantastic.
Thank you. I hope so. I love it.
So this is your second Christmas novel. What is a favorite childhood memory that you have from the holidays growing up?
Yeah, snow tubing. We have so many, all of our little ski mountains in Connecticut, you can snow tube. So they pull you up on a rope.
Awesome.
I have all older brothers, and we used to go and fly down that mountain, over and over and over. I just have memories of hours of doing that and coming back with red cheeks and, just the whole thing. And so snow tubing, but also, the Fantasy of Lights in New Haven is featured in there, and also the Holiday Express train. Those are all memories that I love the most. So
that's awesome. I have great memories every year for Christmas, but I always go to my grandmother's. And one particular year, I think it was maybe 2010, it snowed here in South Carolina just enough for
that's
one of my cousins and I could make a little tiny snowman.
Yay! Of course, you probably didn't know what to do. I was told, since moving here, like, even the little bit of snow will shut everything down. I was like, I love that, because things don't shut down easily up there with snow. Yeah.
No. Yeah, it very rarely snows here. I'm from the Charleston area, and we very rarely get snow.
Yeah, which is why you need to travel up there during the winter.
Yes. Yes. Never been sledding, never been snowboarding, never been skiing, but I've made a little tiny snowman.
Yes, I'm not good skier. I have skied. There's a lot of skiing in the current novel that I'm writing right now. And I had to literally do a lot of research, because I've been skiing, but not good at it. So I don't know anything about it.
Probably wouldn't be either, but it looks fun.
For the people who can do it. I would probably just face tumble down the whole mountain over and over. So
me too. Yes. Yeah. How did you choose the title for this book, and what significance does it hold for you?
Well, it's funny, because the Christmas coin was my idea right away. But the editors and then Jenny, we kind of played with like maybe 5 more titles, because it's just what we do. People get, well, what about this? And what about this? Titles can be really hard, because you have to, you don't want to give too much away in the title. You don't want it to be, it has to be attractive it's hard. But the Christmas coin, because when she gets to this farmhouse, she finds an old Celtic, it's a European penny, which is actually a true story that I found in the last home that I lived in Connecticut, which was built in 1784.
Wow.
My husband and I actually found a coin, and that's also what played into this story. So I had part of the story, and then I find this coin, and then boom, the whole story just came together. So, so that's where the term coined from. Right. And so we played around with so many different titles, because we weren't sure, but it circled right back around, and here we are, the Christmas coin.
Oh, I love that. It's very creative. And I love the history that you brought into the title. That's great.
Yeah.
What was the most rewarding moment you experienced during the writing process of the Christmas coin? And what was the most challenging scene for you to write?
I would say by far the most, the beginning, when she loses her whole career, was challenging, because, I felt so bad, but also the end with her brother. And I don't want to give away everything that happens, but
Yeah.
that was very challenging. It could be a little bit triggering for some. Um, but I tried to do it, and I edited it so many times to make it as beautiful and touching and
Mhm.
heartwarming as I could, because it's such an important part he is such an important character for her, as you can imagine. It's her twin brother, but
Mhm.
for so many reasons that you'll see in the story. So that was definitely hard to write, but then I got to write the kiss at the end. So it's like, okay, I was so
Yes.
move right into the good part. Or as
Yes.
my middle daughter calls it, the smoochy part. So,
Oh, the
which
smoochie.
she picks up all my books, and she'll just skim. She's 10, and she'll skim them
Oh,
until she gets to the smoochy part. And I'm like, thank goodness I write clean romance. 'Cause,
I
I
love
don't
that.
yeah. So, but the most rewarding was being able to finally do Connecticut. So, like I told you, I grew
Mhm.
up there. That's my
Yep.
home state. So, why I didn't start with Connecticut, I'm not sure. I think I just got so inspired by that little village up in New Hampshire that I
Mhm.
just kept going with it. Um, but that to me was rewarding because
Oh.
a lot of the scenes that I describe is
Mhm.
literally what I lived when where I'm from. So it was
Oh.
really rewarding for me to do that. I'm sure I'm going to do another one in Connecticut, but probably
Mhm.
just like a different part of the state. But challenge wise, I do have three daughters. It's always a challenge to get these novels out, especially when one
Mhm.
gets sick and then they all get sick. And then
Yeah.
something else pops up or the school closes down. Like last week,
Mhm.
we were closed for the hurricane. And so things like that happen up there too
Mhm.
with blizzards. And
Oh
so it's
no.
always a challenge. But also just when I do these dual timelines, I have to do a lot of research. So
Mhm.
takes up a
Mhm.
lot of time to do that. So I love doing them, but I try to be as accurate as I can. So
Yes.
it's hours of research.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I can imagine. Yeah.
Yeah, but it's fine. I learned a lot. More than
Yes.
I ever did in history class. So I don't mind doing it.
Yeah. And it's always fun to learn new things. You learn something new every day.
Yeah, that's right.
Can you share a behind the scenes anecdote or interesting fact about writing The Christmas Coin?
You mean an interesting fact about the storyline or just the
Yeah,
writing
sure.
process?
Yeah.
Like I said, a lot of it was researched and a lot of it is factual, even
Mhm.
though it is a made up story. So,
Mhm.
for example, everything from driving over a covered bridge is a famous one. There's in West Cornwall, Connecticut, to
Okay.
Northeast Performing Arts is New Haven Ballet.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of like real true things that are in there. Just obviously the characters'
Mhm.
names are switched, the names of the towns or the
Yeah.
places are switched and things like that. But there is a part about the coin itself. That is not the coin that because if it was, it was worth thousands. Woo, not the coin that my
Wow.
husband and I found. The
Yes.
coin that my husband and I found it ended up being worth about $200 or $300, which was great. And we
Oh,
have it saved.
yeah.
And so I did a lot of research on coins. And so
Yeah.
there is a scene where she's talking to the town historian. So that whole thing is factual about the particular
Okay.
coin. Fine. So I thought I find that stuff interesting. So
I
um
do too. Yeah.
yeah. So just so you know, when you're reading that, all of that
Yes.
stuff, I've talked to historians. The historical societies have become my best friend through the
Wow.
last book, this
Yeah.
book, and the current book that I'm writing right now. So
Well,
yeah.
that's pretty cool, and I will definitely look out for it when I read The
In case
Christmas
anybody
Coin.
has questions about it, there you go.
Yes. And I always, with movies and books, I always love hearing a screenwriter's perspective or an author's perspective on, fun behind the scenes about working on
Yeah,
the projects. Yeah.
right. And so also, my husband's from Ireland. He's got the brogue and everything.
Wow.
So there is some Irish touches in the beginning because when the family comes over from or
Hmm.
crosses the Atlantic, they come from Ireland. So that's all
That's
factual.
amazing.
Put a little bit of Irish in there.
Yeah.
I had to check with his family though. Um,
Oh,
yeah,
that's
yeah.
awesome. Yes. If the Christmas coin was ever turned into a Hallmark movie, what actors would you like to see in their roles?
You know that I have not researched that yet. I actually haven't gotten that far.
Okay.
Um, Maybe you can help me. So so Ben Walsh is single dad, very rugged, not a
Yeah.
businessman. He's a businessman in his own, like he does
Hmm.
construction. So he builds and remodels historical homes.
Okay.
So that's the kind of man Ben is.
Okay.
Uh, yes, he's tall, dark, and handsome. Oh no, no, actually, take that back. He's not. He does not have dark hair. I made him a lighter hair.
Okay.
Um, but he's not a business soup type guy. So
Okay.
I started to look at the actors and actresses a Hallmark, but
Hmm.
I never settled on one. I get so picky about it.
I, I would too. It's hard because there's so many great actors out there on Hallmark.
I know, and even beyond Hallmark, that I'm like, they were
Yeah.
good. And then for Amelia, she's got long brown hair, very
Hmm.
skinny, ballerina.
Hmm.
Just really, she's not a bold, like she's not outspoken,
Hmm.
because I pictured her like at ballerinas, they're kind of in their own head as they're performing on stage, and so she's not a very out. Her best friend Lucy, who's also a fellow dancer of hers, is very outspoken. I made her funny and just, but Amelia's kind of
Yeah.
the opposite, because of all she's going through between her
Hmm.
brother losing her career and things like that. So
Hmm.
she's not shy either. So it was hard to pinpoint her too. I was like,
Oh, definitely. I'll have to give it some thought and maybe I can even post on my
yes. Maybe we can get
Instagram.
people to comment on that too after
Yes.
they.
Yes.
Any ideas, guys?
Definitely.
Let me know.
Yes. I noticed that the Christmas coin will also be released as an audiobook. Do you feel that this adds an interesting dimension to the story?
I do. It's just like visuals, like the cover.
Mm-hmm.
And I also try to do visuals on my social media for each of my books.
Yeah.
I think it just adds not only a different vibe, but it also can
Mm-hmm.
help the reader when you listen. It just uses a different part of your
Yeah.
brain. You can sort of envision the story that you're
Mm-hmm.
listening to kind of in a different way. Because I have I don't know about you, but I have a different experience when I listen to audio books versus when I read them. It's like
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. It's just a different, and I feel that the woman who Kimberly Austin, who does my record, she does such a great job. She really, really does. And so she's very accurate with her how she pronounces things. She always checks to make sure that everything's, and I've gotten a lot of great feedback about her. So because I have listened to novels that the audio or it just wasn't, I wasn't connecting to who was reading the story. So I feel like that's important.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I just feel like it's a different vibe when you listen to it on Audible. Yeah,
I think so too. Of course, I love reading
I do.
a hard copy, like having a hard copy in my hand to read, but I think audio is great too. And I'm a
When you're
very
driving.
visual, yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
audio person. So I can't wait to
right.
check out the audio as well.
She does great. Can't say enough about
Yeah.
her.
Yes. I'm sure she does a great job. What is special about this book, and what do you hope that readers will take away from it?
This book, so Amelia goes through a lot of change, right? And she
Mhm.
has to accept that change. And I think as readers, all of us have that challenge in life. So we
Mhm.
might lose someone or something,
Mhm.
or loss. No one can avoid loss, in my
Mhm.
opinion. So we all go through life, and again, we're gonna
Mhm.
lose someone or something that we love. So for Amelia, she loses her career and she loses some other stuff too. And so it's I feel the reader can connect to her that way, even if they don't have the same type of losses that she has. They can connect to how she kind of picks it back up and makes something new for herself. And uh, so that is my hope with as a takeaway for my readers, to be
Mhm.
able to um, be motivated and and say, I'm struggling with XYZ, and maybe help tap into their own creativity a little bit to say,
Mhm.
how could I move past whatever I'm going through? Or it just feels inspiring to see a
Mhm.
character like that be able to come out on the other side after losing so much. And so I just want the reader to be able to feel comforted by that.
Mhm.
So that's my hope with the Christmas
Mhm.
coin.
Mhm. That's
Yeah.
beautiful. And I always love when movies, books, TV shows have important lessons that can be learned with the
Yeah, yeah,
story.
and it just leaves us smiling like,
Yeah.
okay, all is good.
Yes.
I can wake up tomorrow morning and start over fresh, and everything's going to be okay. So
Yes.
no matter what we're going through. So Yeah.
Do you have any upcoming projects that we can look forward to for 2025?
I sure do. I have a summer novel coming out in May that the
Yay.
edits should be coming back any day now for that one. And then I have a Christmas 2025 as well. So I have two more books coming out next
That's
year.
awesome.
So it's a lot of writing and editing on this end and juggling my three girls, but all is good. And every time I get feedback from my readers or I connect with my readers in any way, I love connecting with them on social media. It just moves me to keep going, just to
Oh,
keep writing those
that's
books.
awesome.
And so yeah,
That's awesome.
yeah.
And I can't wait to check those out as well when
Yes,
they
and
come out next
I
year.
can't wait. Yeah, can't wait to see what everybody thinks of the Christmas
Yes.
coin too.
Yes. I have a
Yeah.
fun this or that
Okay,
game if you would like to play before we wrap up.
absolutely.
Meet your favorite author or meet your favorite character.
Meet my favorite author.
Yeah, that's a good one. I'd probably have to say meet my favorite character, but meet your favorite author is great too.
I learned so much from other authors, so I love meeting
Yes.
them. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Unlimited free books or live inside your favorite book.
Ooh, live inside my favorite book. How fun would that be?
Yeah, I think I've said that across the board with some of my other author interviews.
Yeah, let's just turn off this world. And I always joke, I have made a few jokes on TikTok about that,
Yeah.
like looking up from my current work in progress and seeing the real world. Nope, going right back into this.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah.
If you could live inside your favorite book, what would that book be?
Okay, out of the three that are out right now, I'm sure
Yeah.
my answer could change 15 books from now.
Yeah.
But for now, let's choose between, I would have to say Fly Away Summer because
Okay.
Cape Cod is my favorite childhood vacation spot. And it's forever my favorite vacation place.
Aw.
And it has such a different feel to it than any other beach vacation that I've ever experienced. And it's even fun there in the winter too. So I'd have to say that one.
I've heard it's beautiful. I've never been there, but I would love to visit there someday.
Yes, you should.
Yes. Enemies to lovers or friends to lovers?
Enemies to lovers. Yeah.
That's a
Hard to
good
write.
one.
I love reading it. Hard to write. Very hard to write. Because you have to have them pivot. I remember
Yeah.
in Flyway Summer, the editor was like, okay, Lindsay, we're like 100 pages in. Let's get them loving each other now. I'm like, oh, I was like, so it's really hard in such a limited
Yeah.
amount of words to go from the enemies to lovers. So it's tricky, but I love reading it.
Yes. I've heard it's very hard, but that is a great one. I think I would pick friends to lovers, but enemies to lovers is great too.
Yeah.
Movie based on a book or show based on a book?
I would say well, I mean, I like both. I like series. I'm watching
Yeah.
the Perfect Couple right now, with her
Okay.
book. And that's like a series, right? Or a set of shows.
Mhm.
But I don't know. I like just sitting down for 2 hours or so, and just getting through the whole book in one movie. So,
Yeah.
but there's something nice about looking forward to
Yeah.
those shows as they come out every
Yeah.
week. But I'm kind of impatient sometimes, so I like the movies that we can just skip through the
Me
whole thing.
too. Yes, me
Yeah.
too. I think I would pick show based on a book, but
Yeah.
you
It's
can't
all
go
good.
wrong with either.
No, no.
Favorite book as a film or favorite book as a TV series?
Okay, so like I said before, I like series because you can just take parts of it and then
Yep.
your viewers can look
Mhm.
forward to what's coming. So, and it keeps the excitement going, right? With a
Yeah.
series. Yeah.
Yes, very true. I think my favorite book as a TV series is When Calls the Heart or The Canadian West, written by Jeanette Oak, that's a
Oh,
Hallmark show. Yeah.
oh, absolutely. Both great. Yeah.
Yes. Fiction or nonfiction?
Fiction.
Yeah, I would have to pick fiction too.
Although nonfiction has a place, right? So if
Yes,
we're
very
struggling
true.
with something, we pick up a nonfiction to help us, or
Mhm.
if we're looking
Yeah.
for an answer for something, it just uses a different
Mhm.
part of our psyche, but fiction for sure, because we can just get
Yes.
lost in it. Yeah.
Yes. Physical book or ebook?
Physical, always. I love to
Yeah.
hold them. I also, because I'm on the screen so much as a writer, I like to
Mhm.
get off the screen and look at a real book.
Yes, me
Yeah.
too. Yep. Even with magazines,
Yes.
DVDs, CDs, hard copy in my
We're
hand.
just we're just old school. That's just it.
Yeah.
And I like smelling them.
Yep.
I do. I like smelling books. Yeah.
Yep. And last one, standalone or a series?
That depends on my mood, and it also depends on the storyline, because some
Mhm.
storylines are great as a series, and then
Yeah.
some. I've even read series that I'm like, that can kind of be a standalone.
Mhm.
But standalones, I like standalones. I'm gonna go with that one because I like to just move on to the next set of characters sometimes.
Yeah,
So yeah.
totally understandable. Yeah, I would pick standalone too, unless
It
it's a
depends.
series, yeah, that has all come out. Like all of them are out.
And I have so many authors that I like to read, so I'm like, all right, I gotta move on to the next one.
Yes. As we wind out the interview, I have a segment on the podcast where I ask my guest to share an inspiring quote or piece of advice. So, do you have an inspiring quote or piece of advice you would like to share?
So so for the Christmas, my memoir has a lot of grief elements to it, and that was another big part, like we were discussing before
Mhm.
with the Christmas coin. So grief, and I also worked with a lot of my clients with grief and loss. So it's a big area of specialty with me. And so I actually want to share a quote from my memoir that kind of correlates with the Christmas coin, because grief is it's
Okay.
an element to that story. And that love is the reason we grieve, and love is what is going to bring you back. So, and I have that quote written behind me somewhere on my desk on a little piece of paper. And as I'm writing these love stories, and these characters are going through, maybe it's not grief, maybe it's just
Mhm.
some other challenge, but love is what keeps us going. So,
That's very true. Great quote. I think everyone should take to heart.
yes.
Well, where can my listeners find you on social media?
I am on Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok as author Lindsay Gibson, and it's Lindsay with an A. Everybody asks. And then L Gibson author on Twitter. I'm on all the things. You can find me.
Yes.
And then my website is lindsaygibson.com.
All right. Sounds good. Everyone, make sure to go follow her. She is fantastic.
Thank you.
Of course. Well, thank you so much, Lindsay, for taking the time to come on and chat with me. I had a great time.
I had a good time too. Thank you.
Of course. All right, everyone. I think that wraps up my interview with Lindsay Gibson. If you enjoyed this episode, you can like this video and share what you're looking forward to most about Lindsay's upcoming novel, The Christmas Coin. If you are listening on Spotify, make sure to rate and review, as your feedback is always greatly appreciated. If you want to stay up to date on all of my episodes, you can subscribe to this channel or follow along on Spotify, and make sure to turn on the bell so you are alerted when new episodes come. You can also find the podcast on Instagram and Facebook at Swing My Heart Podcast and Twitter at Swing My Heart Pod. Thank you so much for listening. I hope you have a wonderful day or night wherever you are in the world, and I will see you next time. Love y'all. Bye.